Welcome everybody back to Misery's Company. Yeah, we're back up in here. The men in black did not come kick down this door. Alright? I was really sick. I couldn't stop coughing. But we're back and we gotta talk about the Mexican aliens. We gotta talk about it. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Everything, just don't believe it. It's all a bunch of baloney. Alright? Now I got this science. It's from a channel called Scientists Against Myths, and they debunked this years ago. It's incredible the way that they put this together. Now you got to follow along. It's like it's a Russian guy or something, but it's voiced well in American, so you'll be able to understand it. The first thing they talk about is this mummified alien hands, and then it'll go into what we're seeing with these aliens in Mexico and it being debunked. So without further ado, let's get into this.
That the humanoid mummies from Nazca are just a simple fake.
Fake.
The mysterious Nazca mummies. What are they? Ancient aliens? A mixed breed of aliens and humans? An extinct race of ancient gods unknown to science? Or is this just a hoax? But can a hoax be of such a massive scale? In the last episode, we got to know some people from Peru and Russia who were involved in this story. We also found out that there's a mass production of fake antiquities in South America. We have learned that the amazing Nazca mummies have been researched with X-rays, CT scans, histology, and genetic analysis,
and we get it all right here.
Dating.
Come on, we got it all right here.
The results of this extensive
Misery's
research
Company
are available on the alienproject.com. All the evidence seems to indicate that these amazing finds are genuine. Let's analyze these materials one by one.
Now watch, this is really good how he puts this together.
The X-ray imagery was the first evidence alien researchers used to claim the authenticity of the mummies. The X-rays are brandished in a video on the official mummy research project.
It's the hands.
¿Te parece un fraude? Te explico por qué no creería en fraude.
But for reasons unknown, mummy enthusiast Konstantin Korotkov is rather critical of these X-rays in his book. On page 79, he writes, quote, "It's next to impossible to come to any conclusions based on the X-rays, so we rely on the CT analysis.
Analysis.
End of quote. He was just as skeptical in his correspondence with me when I'd sent him the results of our X-ray expert analysis. He wrote to me, quote, "The X-rays are not sufficient for any sound conclusions." End of quote. Why this sudden about-face? Unbelievable! This X-ray proves without a shade of doubt that the mummies are genuine. In your face, official science. Nothing beats the X-rays. What's this? A report by the anthropogenist experts? A crude? Fake? The X-ray is nonsense. You can't make any conclusions based on that. But we will start.
Let me stop it there. The X-rays don't tell you everything that you need to know. All right, they go in there with the computers and they really break down which bones, and they make it real easy to understand which bones go where and how they were placed and everything else. And it's a complete hoax. This was the first one. The ones we're seeing in Mexico. It's old news. It's old news. So let's get back into this. Let's go.
Study those X-rays anyway. Anthropologist Stanislav Drobushevsky and paleontologist Alexei Bondarev have offered their expert opinions.
Non-human cutaway X-rays.
Among all the weird mummies, there are 4 three-fingered hands. These hands were among the first finds that Mario shared with alien enthusiasts in late 2016. Let's have a look at the first hand. For those of you who may not know, the human hand contains metacarpal bones that form the palm of our hand. The hand also consists of phalanges that form our fingers and thumbs.
Look at
The mummy's
watch.
fingers consist of human metacarpals and phalanges mixed together. Wait, what's that? Is this a metatarsal bone? It's a midfoot bone. It's
from a
followed by a
foot.
phalange, then a metacarpal, then again by phalanges.
See how he
Let's
color
look at the
codes it?
articulation joints now. Look at this X-ray of a real human hand. The bones are fitted snugly to each other, artistic concaves with few clearances. Otherwise, you'd have difficulty moving your hand. The so-called alien mummy's hand is all messed up.
Look at what a
Concaves
mess.
join concaves at random. And what's inside the hand? Very few joints, just a
Look.
mess of stumps. And why is a human ulna there? The wrong way around, with its point facing the fingers.
You see it? Look, oh my.
Let's examine
Come
the
on,
second
people.
hand now.
Wake up.
Things look much better here. Inside the hand, we spot a tibia, or shin bone, two metacarpals hanging loosely, some phalanges, and other mishmash. Finally, his hand number 3. Looks even better.
This is just an example.
But
We're
the
getting
fingers
into
are
the good
still a
stuff
puzzling mix
next.
of
Stay
hand and
tuned.
foot
Don't
bones.
go anywhere.
Inside the wrist, we can make out 2 humeri, or upper arm bones, 2 ulnae, and 1 tibia that all seem to have belonged to a child. Amongst these, we suddenly find a border vertebra. Why on earth does it have
Kids'
to be here?
bones
Well, just
from
because.
children.
Let's now look at all the
Let
hands
that
together.
sink in.
You get an impression that their creator was
The kind of
gaining
people we're
experience
dealing
with
with.
each subsequent hand. The first hand was a complete flop, but the forger was learning from their mistakes. But if these hands belong to creatures of one and the same species, then why are they so versatile? Look
Right,
at
why are
hands
they
of
all
different
different?
apes. They may seem to have little similarity, but they always follow a single plan.
Right?
And here we only see a total hodgepodge of stuff. The official mummy website says the hands are made up of 26 bones each. I counted them up, left to right, 31, 27, 24, and 26 bones.
They're all different number
You can check
bones.
yourselves. It's a miracle of bioengineering. A bionic Lego set that uses homeotic genes.
Come on, people.
The Atlanteans were capable of creating any biorobotic servants they wished, ignoring the laws of biomechanics.
All right, let me pause it there. That's just an example with the alien hands. Now you see how they used all different types of bones, children's bones in different orders, and progressively the dude making them, the Frankenstein hand, has gotten progressively better each time. That's just an example. That we're going to get into what we're talking about in Mexico right now. But before we do that, make sure you like and subscribe, comment. We ain't going nowhere. Share this and let's get going.
I have a simpler explanation. Someone who
Right
created
here.
these was little bothered by biomechanics or anatomy. Their goal was to imitate the outer shape. So they just grabbed whichever bones fitted in size and covered them with
Make it
some
look like
substance
skin.
to imitate flesh. Now let's study the
Yeah, let's
X-rays
study
of the
that.
small mummies.
Right here.
Ufologists go as far as
Right
calling
here.
them humanoid reptiles.
Look
So
familiar?
what do we see?
Years
Same stuff.
ago.
A hodgepodge of human and animal
Years
bones.
ago.
Here's a mummy named Josephine. A real beauty. Instead of humeri, she sports femurs, or thigh bones. Her legs are even more baffling. One of the thigh bones is actually a femur, only facing the wrong way around, while the other one is a tibia. And they are completely mismatched. With the hip bone,
Look,
there's no
watch,
joint
watch
there
it
at
fall
all.
over.
The poor humanoid wouldn't have made a single step. Some of the bones are simply chopped off. Note this asymmetry here.
Mess.
The fingers are a total mess too. The first pseudophalanges are facing in different directions on her left and right hands, with the white part facing up or down. Well, they just forgot to turn them the right way. Stuff happens. And look at this alien head. French paleontologist Julien Benoit thinks that those who crafted the small humanoid mummies used skulls of some small mammals for their heads, such
An
as a llama
alpaca.
or alpaca.
Watch this.
Comparison shows that the reptiloid's cranial cavity fits perfectly the cranial cavity of a llama. The location of the olfactory bulbs, the inner ear, the brain hemisphere,
They just cut it
and
off
the
and turned it
cerebellum
backwards.
precisely matches those in a llama skull. The whole facial part of the skull was broken off, leaving only the brain case. The skull was then rotated so its back part faces forward. The reptiloid's face is actually the back
poor
of the poor
llama's
llama's
head.
head. Paleontologist Rodolfo Salas Gismondi is of the same opinion. Where could the mummy forgers have gotten a llama skull? Historian
Incredible.
Yuri Bereskin has told me that pre-Columbian peoples of Peru often made llama burials. Here's a fresh report about finding buried llama mummies in Peru. Paleontologist Alexei Bondarev has examined a photograph depicting the base of the skull of one of the mummies, from which the skin had been lifted. See this unusual square foramen magnum? The alleged place of the junction of the brain and the spinal cord. You can clearly see how the so-called skin goes inside the square hole with no tearing. It's as if a human neck went right inside the hole in the back of their skull. You can make a doll like this, but it's simply impossible to find in a real mummy of any creature, be it of a humanoid or reptiloid kind. Master, where do we attach the backbone? What? Onto the forehead? How many times should I tell you? This creature has no analogues in terrestrial fauna. Do as you're told.
All right, so you can see where we're going here. A complete fake. So I don't know why they would take this to the government, and why the government of Mexico. Is it a political stunt? Is it for attention? I don't. The research on the man that did this, he's already been called out for this. This is years old. This didn't come out yesterday. They knew that these were fakes, yet the Mexican government decided to come on national TV, swear people in, and claim these to be actual alien bodies. And it's incredible to me. You cannot believe the news anymore. It's done. News is done. Okay? Let's get back into it. Let's go.
You can read about Alexei Bondarev's reasoning in more detail by following a link in the description to this video. Alexei did more than that. At one of the Scientists Against Myths events, he retaliated the Nazca aliens by showing the mummy of an Omsk penguinoid. He used seagull and rabbit bones covered with toy clay to create a picture-perfect mummy. His skills in anatomy helped Alexei choose the right bones to make working joints and hip bone. This is what sets the penguinoid apart from the so-called Nazca mummies. Of course, we don't plan to fool people with this mummy. But just imagine what a sensation it could make. New loot has just arrived. Sensational discovery by Siberian diggers. Intelligent marsupial penguinoid dryoping Venus nanus from the era of, what's he called? Asgardus Darius.
They should have gave that to the Mexican government.
Mates have stumbled on this during construction of the Palenque metro lines. Don't touch it. It's radioactive. What's your price, senor?
Breaking news. Non-human. I didn't catch that.
Okay, we've examined the X-rays, but X-rays so old school. We've got a brand new examination technology today called CT,
computer
tomography.
CT.
This is what Kurtkov writes about it in his book on page 1.
They're really going to break it down for you. Breaking news.
It is no longer enough to simply look at ancient bones. To understand the peculiarities of images on high-resolution computer tomograms and be able to interpret them requires a great deal of clinical experience. This can be done by doctors who study such images every day, but anthropologists usually do not have this knowledge. End of quote. This must have been the reason why no anthropologists were invited to
And they
join
weren't
the
at the
mummy research
Mexican
team.
Congress
Luckily,
meeting either.
we did find one such expert. This is anthropologist
Interesting.
Sergei Slepchenko from the Laboratory of Anthropology and Ethnology at the Institute of the Problems of Assimilation of the North of the Siberian Subdivision of the
Nobody
Russian
invited.
Academy of Sciences. Sergei has studied mummies of the far north of Russia and has studied CT scans of ancient mummies. I asked Sergei to look at the CT scans of the Nazca mummies known as Albert and Josephine. Surprisingly, Sergei came to the same conclusion as his colleagues, though he knew nothing about their examination results. Quote, according to my analysis of the CTs in question, the objects Albert and Josephine are not skeletons of any real animals, but are handiwork that was made using human
Children bones.
End of quote. The anthropologist noted that in both Albert and Josephine, thigh bones were used instead of humeri, or upper arm bones. Albert had a humerus in place of one thigh bone, and a thigh bone in place of the other shin bone. The expert had noticed that the mummy's backbone is composed of broken vertebrae and ribs that often go inside the spinal canal. Slepchenko noted low quality of the tomograms. He also pointed that something was stuffed inside Albert's neck vertebrae.
In his vertebrae.
Likely some bone or stick to keep the head upright.
Stick to keep the head on.
Look closer. There's some kind of stuff inside the spinal canal that is absent in the foramen magnum. Then it appears in the vertebral foramen of the first vertebra and goes on down through the whole
Computers
cervical
don't
spine.
lie. Unless you're on Google.
In the lower part of the neck vertebrae, this stuff spreads to almost the whole width of the neck, but it can't be found in the thoracic spine. French paleontologist Julien Benoit also notes this stuff inside Josephine's neck. You can read Sergei Slepchenko's expert conclusions in the extra materials in the description to this video. And here is a comparison of the CT scan of Josephine's skull with a llama skull made by our friends from Peru.
Come on, people. Let's put this to bed. Let's put it to bed. It's not nighttime. Who's tired of being lied to? Incredible.
In actual fact, the first reptiloid mummies didn't look that good. They had been preceded by several prototypes which were so poorly crafted that even ufologists dismissed them as fakes. Look at these poor victims of an amateur taxidermist. Look at this little Frankenstein.
Whoopsie.
A real beauty, isn't it? The neck is a total masterpiece. Instead of vertebrae, it's made of a whole tubular bone. Although photos of these monsters were initially featured in mummy articles, you won't find a single mention of them on the Alien Project.
Non-human cutaway. Three-fingered Maria.
Mummy enthusiasts divide these mummies into two types. We have already examined the small so-called humanoid mummies. The other type is three-fingered humans. Maria, the most publicized mummy, belongs to that type. Basically, Maria looks pretty human, but her skull is elongated. She has no ears, her eyes are too big, and most importantly, she's got 3 fingers in each hand.
There's a real
and 2 toes in
Dr.
each foot.
Frankenstein
Actually,
out
her
there
skull shape
somewhere.
is nothing unique. Pre-Columbian communities in Peru practice artificial cranial or skull deformation. The ears might have been cut off to create a more plausible alien visage. Some whitish substance, possibly tellurine, was used as makeup. Our Peruvian colleague Luca has found traces of some tools
like a
of the mummy
brush.
that resemble those left by a brush. Ancient Nazca mummies have been known to archaeologists for a long time. I mean actual mummies of real 5-fingered ancient humans. Hundreds of mummies of the pre-Columbian Chachapoya culture have been found. The pre-Columbians used special techniques to preserve the body before burial. Thanks to the dry climate of coastal Peru, human remains were well preserved. A lot of these mummies can be seen in museums. Here they are on display at the Lema Bamba Museum.
That's terrifying.
Look at the way they're crouched. We've seen this before. The grave diggers may have gotten one of these mummies for themselves, but the fingers were a bit too many, so they just chop off a few, thanks paleontologist Rodolfo Salas Gismondi of the New York Museum of Natural History. Maria lost her thumbs and pinkies. Then some flesh on the palms of her hands was shaved off to make the remaining fingers look longer. Salas Gismondi shows this on an X-ray of a real human hand. Paleontologist Julien Benoit has noticed another interesting detail on Maria's CT. He has counted 5 sinews of her right hand extension muscles. Here's the thumb sinew while the thumb is gone. There's one more little detail. If you cut a fresh sinew, it shrinks. But if a dry mummified sinew is cut that is no longer elastic, it stays in place after the cutting, and this is what it will look like. And that's exactly what we see here. The thumb was cut off after the mummification. The forgers used the same technique on the mummy's feet. Without her big
There's a
toes and
UFO.
foot arches that work as rigid support for human legs, the mummy would have been unable to walk without difficulty. The X-rays show tinkering with the foot arches. Anthropologist Stanislav Drobyshevsky noticed that back in 2017. Here's the X-ray of one of Maria's feet. Compare it to the structure of a real human's foot. I'm not going into too much detail here. Just look at how tightly foot bones are pressed to one another in a human foot. And now look at the mummy's foot. See this big gap between her tarsal
Look at the
bones and
gap.
the 3 metatarsal bones? Where are her articulation
This
joints?
is what we're dealing
There's
with,
simply none
people.
there. Hang on.
Who
a
is
human
tired
being
of
has
the
3
lie?
phalanges in each finger. 1, 2, 3. Maria has 5 in both her fingers and toes.
3. Alright, you see where I'm going here. This is incredible. The bones don't line up. There's a real life Frankenstein somewhere out there in a hut or something putting these things together, making fake aliens and alien bodies, and they're just piecing stuff together from parts and pieces and parts and then just trying to fool people. And then they take it to Mexico and say, hey, Congress, we found the aliens. Look, the Americans didn't have bodies. We have bodies. Come on, people. Let's go.
We already know that Peruvian forgers show great skills in
Great
hand
skills.
reconstruction. Let's have another look at the feet X-rays. Flavio Estrada Moreno, criminal forensics expert from the Peruvian Institute of Forensics, examined Maria's feet X-rays and spotted finger bones in them.
Got to make it longer.
But does it really matter what bones to use to make the mummy if the poor wretch will never walk again?
Nah, don't. Non-human cutaway. Examining Bavita.
I also want to talk about another Nazca mummy called Bavita. This is a young child's mummy. It's featured on the Alien Project website and is mentioned in Korotkov's publications and the book. It's got 3 fingers in each hand and 3 toes on each foot. But the extra fingers and toes were so crudely removed that even mummy enthusiasts noticed that. Korotkov says in his book, quote, "There are signs of removal of fingers," end of
removal
quote.
of fingers.
Dentist Dmitry Galetsky, one of the
I hope
Russian
they were
amateur mummy
dead.
experts, says in an interview, quote, "Its fingers and toes were simply torn off. Originally, it had 5 fingers and then someone tore them off or bit them off."
Bit
end of
them
quote.
off.
So the fingers and the toes were bitten off. I guess biting off fingers and toes should have raised red flags, even for the most gullible pathologist, and should have given them second thoughts about the origins of another mummy that also lacks 2 fingers on its hands and 2 toes on its feet. I can't stress this enough. Someone chopped off the child mummy's fingers and toes.
I hope it was a mummy
Dear
and not a
ufologists,
child.
shouldn't this give you some food for thought? Nope. At least this fact is not commented in any of the ufological publications that I have studied. What you're saying is nonsense.
Nonsense.
Yes, bones can be faked, but tissue structure cannot. How can you fake the DNA? We have histological and genetic data to back that. It's a serious argument. Luckily, we can also use histologists and geneticists' help, including the geneticists who have analyzed mummies before. Together, we'll try to work out what we can learn from Nazca mummy tissue examination. We'll talk about this in the next part of our investigation. Do you want the next video?
Alright, that's it. Like I said, It's all a hoax. Anybody brings this to you, send them my way. Send them our way. We'll set them straight. We only do the real stuff here. Questionable, yeah, we cover it. Hoaxes, yeah, we're covering that too, okay? Like I said, I'm sorry I was sick. I'd had another video or two out by now, but this is Misery's Company. Leave me some ideas down in the comments. Thanks for hanging in there, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you later. Misery's Company's out.